You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming in Arya Firoozmand, co-founder at Overture Law and located in Los Angeles, but helping small firms everywhere. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, good to have you on. You have a very interesting story of entrepreneurship and being in a law firm. You've done a lot of cool things over your career. So just to start and get a background, are you a native Californian or what's your background there?
Yeah, born and raised Los Angeles, didn't stray too far from SoCal. Went down to Irvine for a bit for school, back to LA after that. Just been in LA most of my life. It's great here. When people say it's crowded, I say you're right. It is very crowded. You should go somewhere else so it's less crowded.
There you go. I love that. So we featured you on our social media channel today. By the time this comes out, it'll be a few weeks or so down the road, but it sounds like law school wasn't really the plan at first. You were more of like a math and science person. So tell us where the tide turned.
I was better at math and science throughout most of schooling, right? And so my dad was an engineer, and so it naturally made sense for me to go down that path too. And I think that's what he wanted. But I did what every rebellious kid did and went the complete opposite direction and decided to go to law school. And so going into undergrad at UC Irvine, which I mentioned is not down the road from here in LA, I went there fully knowing that I was going to go to law school by the end of that. And so enjoyed a few years and went to law school after that.
That's awesome. And you went to UCLA, right? So that's a really good school out there. What was your experience like? I know you met one of your, I'll let you tell the story. You met one of the people that you ended up working with for a while, or maybe.
Yeah. I met Kurt, my co-founder at actually UC Irvine in undergrad, and he was not only, one of my best friends there, but somebody who was influential in pushing me to law. I saw him being just so driven to go to law school, be a lawyer, and that was attractive to say, wow, okay, this is something that makes sense for me to do as well. I saw law school as opening up so many doors outside of just being a practitioner. I'm an NBA fan. I know you are as well. You see all these influential people in the NBA. David Stern was a lawyer. Adam Silver's a lawyer. You say, wow, okay, there's so many paths for me outside of just being a traditional lawyer. So let's go down this path. And funny enough, when Kurt and I both got into UCLA, and we were, funny enough, in the same section. So we spent 12 hours a day, every day, 5-6 days a week for the first year. And that's probably the basis of our friendship that kind of evolved and obviously has become a business relationship since then.
That's awesome. Great combination there, to be savvy in business and to have the law degree. I think it's cool to talk to people like you, attorneys like you, who really can show that you don't have to be, even if you are the traditional attorney, you can still do side things and use that knowledge to grow businesses. I know you've had a couple of them that seem that did pretty well. So we'll get into that in a minute. But tell us about your first lawyer job out of UCLA.
Yeah, so I went back down to Orange County. I worked at a mid-sized firm for a couple of years, was representing large builders for a while. And at that firm, it was great. They let me do a lot of different types of day-to-day practice that I think most people at big firms didn't. I was doing depositions, mediations, and going to court arguing motions. So that was really great to see. I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for one of my mentors now, Bob Scott. He was one of the first folks in the insurance bad faith world, right? Who was one of the influential members of growing that. He introduced me to the plaintiff side, and so I started working more and more with him, and less with the partners dealing with the big builders. And it was really, really interesting to see that entire world that was so different than anything we had seen in law school and we had experienced at the firm.
Was it a bigger firm because you were doing both sides of litigation?
Yeah. So what happened was the firm was about 100 attorneys, and they mostly did construction defense of these giant builders, but one of their specialties was insurance, and they were doing a lot of third-party work. And so they said, well, why don't we bring some first-party insurance attorneys, those bad faith attorneys, and say, round out that practice. So it was kind of their first foray into the plaintiff side, which they were never really into before. And so I naturally gravitated to that.
Oh, nice.
Having more of a personal contact with the clients and being able to influence these clients' lives in a better way was more of my speed.
Yeah. So one thing, and by the way, like for everybody listening out there who's read Arya's lawyer story, I had to abbreviate that. We had to abbreviate that big time. So there's like so much more to Arya's story. But one thing I pulled out is you talk about bad faith in your lawyer story. So how does that relate to referral fees?
That's a great question. I think, bad faith when in the context of insurance companies, right? You pay this premium and, you hear that nice commercial that they're on your side, and you hope that when something goes wrong, they're going to be there for you. That's the assumption. And one of the things that we saw, and actually this is why Kurt and I left our jobs, is to focus on building out a referral system for this, for insurance bad faith, that is, was because people just didn't know that these things happen all the time. They get denied, and there are attorneys who take these on contingency. Right. And that misinformation actually led us to realizing that, hey, we could maybe do this on our own. We could fix that information gap and be that conduit to find clients who get denied by insurance companies, find great attorneys who are much more experienced than us at the time in accepting those cases and generating a referral fee along the way. But as I mentioned before, that wouldn't have been possible to see that connection if it wasn't for Bob kind of showing me the ropes and saying, hey, this is how referral fees work. This is common practice in the plaintiff's world, because it's not something, referral fees aren't something law school teaches you. It's not a class that you take. Right. And it wasn't something that's common in the defense world. So having him illuminate that world to me was great, because that's what Kurt and I ended up leaving our firms to start.
Yeah, that's amazing. Is that Overture or Biz Counsel is totally different, right? That's
yeah. So it was a company that we called Claim Counsel, which was the basis for Biz Counsel. We focused entirely on, like I said, insurance bad faith, collecting those cases, figuring out exactly what specialty we needed, and associating attorneys to take those matters and generating a referral fee in the middle. And when we were working on this idea, I said, hey, Kurt, why don't we just email one of the founders of LegalZoom and just see what they're doing, if they're interested, and just to pick their brain and get some insight from that. And so I emailed Brian Liu, who's now my partner at Overture and everything else we've done, and just said, hey, I'm working on this. And he was interested, and we chatted a bunch and had a ton of great conversations. And he ended up saying, hey, let's give it a go. And so that was how we met Brian. That's how we started working together. That's how he's been such an influence on my life and what we've done here.
So LegalZoom was pretty big back then too. And so I think that's really kind of an interesting piece, is that they probably get emails often, but they saw something that you guys had that they were really interested in. So is there something more to that?
Yeah. It's LegalZoom is big. I think when I was applying for jobs at a law school, even though Kurt and I studied together all the time, Kurt somehow was at the top of his class, and I somehow was at the bottom. And at the time, it was very challenging, right? To say, hey, what did I do wrong, right? We were studying from the same books. We spent all the time together. But in hindsight, it was an absolute blessing because it forced me to look outside of the normal path in terms of even getting jobs and meeting people and realizing, hey, I got to put my best foot forward, and that's not coming across on a piece of paper. So I got very, very comfortable in reaching out to people, understanding how to reach out to people cold, realizing that, just like this, you want to ask people what their story is and just hear them out. And people will gladly tell you about their experiences. So I did the same that's how I got my first job. That's how I met Brian, and rest is history.
You couldn't have done too bad. I mean, if you went to a 100-person law firm, but that was through networking, right? It was a cold call that you made, and somebody obviously liked you and said, "Come on in," sort of thing.
Yeah, it became a full-time job, just emailing folks, having conversations, and seeing where they went. But you realize that this world is just who you know, and it's people at the end of the day, and it's very easy for folks to not realize that when they're looking at a resume. And so if you can do anything to break that barrier, you're going to have a lot more success. That's what I tell law students all the time.
That's great advice for law students. Like, do anything to break the barrier, find your success in an alternate route, right?
100%. I mean, all of life and law is about seeing problems, putting your best assets in front of those problems to solve those problems, right? And so if on-campus interviews isn't for you, you can't get in your foot in the door this way, then find another way to get through. And for me, what worked well was just reaching out to folks and wanting, I was doing the amateur version of lawyer stories back then. Just tell me about your practice. Tell me about how you got to this point. How did you get into transactional law? And just hearing those experiences opened up opportunities from there.
The amateur version, I like that.
Well, you're the professional. I was doing it to get a job.
I do what I can. So tell us about Overture.
Yeah, so I guess the story continues in that that company that we started with Brian, we ended up growing and focusing on personal injury and employment plaintiff side, and we grew that. We brought in Robert Shapiro as our spokesperson for that and built that up. And along the way, we ended up adding another vertical, which we ended up focusing on entirely, which was small businesses, of course, what Brian knew real well, in a company called Biz Counsel, and built that up. It's a legal subscription company for small businesses. They pay a set monthly fee, and they get basic legal services to cover those needs. And so we built out a network of attorneys to service those clients, and everything was going well. We had now we have about 2,000 small businesses that we service through Biz Counsel. But I don't think we'd be building what became Overture if the last few years didn't happen, right? We started to hear stories from our attorneys in that network saying, listen, I have clients coming to me now where they have needs outside of what I need because they have employees in 5 states, they have operations over here, and they're headquartered in another state. And they're feeling like, I can't work with you, this small firm attorney in Dallas, because you can't service all of my needs. I'm going to have to find all these attorneys, and maybe it's easier for me to go to a big firm.
Right.
And you're starting to see other areas of law that never needed to associate with attorneys in other parts of the country now needing to, just because of the sprawl of people. And people in New York bought condos in Florida during the pandemic. And so now when they put a will together, they need multiple attorneys, these problems that never came about before. And so we heard enough times, hey, I need a referral for this. Where we realized we needed to build a solution that allowed great independent attorneys to refer matters to each other and ethically share in fees. And so that became Overture.
Wow, so that's amazing. So tell us what makes a true entrepreneur.
How much time do you have? In all seriousness, I think the term entrepreneur, I'm impressed whenever I see people who take the leap and try. I think that's the hardest thing to do. And whenever people say, what's your advice to start a business or to get into legal tech or any tech for that matter, I think the hardest thing is just to do it, just to try. I remember distinctly when I was deciding whether to quit my job and to be an entrepreneur. I asked my girlfriend, now my wife, I said, what should I do? And she was saying, listen, you're not going to look back over your life and say, dang, I tried it and it didn't work. You're going to look back and say, I wish I tried that one thing.
Yeah, it's good advice.
I think we forget as attorneys, we're very specialized already. You could always start something as an attorney, give it a shot, see where it goes. You're going to have a ton of learning from that. You don't realize how much you're going to learn and how that's going to benefit you no matter what you do in the future. But guess what? If it doesn't work out, you're still an attorney. You can still go back and practice. You still have the skill set. It's not like you're a high school kid who doesn't have any skills or benefits to offer and provide services.
I love that advice. I think that's spot on. So what advice would you give to an attorney who wants to pivot out of the practice of law and do something entrepreneurial, follow their passion with a new venture?
No, that's great. I think my advice would be, if you can do it earlier in your career. I think the farther you get into this career, and Kurt and I were feeling this, granted we left 2 years in, you get comfortable and you start getting used to that lifestyle, and the feeling of not having a paycheck for a while, that feeling of going back a few rungs to hopefully come up and exit the other side better, is harder to do as you get older. Now I have a family. I can't imagine the stress that people have when they make that decision later in life, and the later and later it goes, I think the harder it is. And I have great admiration for people who do it at any stage. But I think the sooner you can give it a shot, the better chance you have of being able to withstand some of those bumps to be successful.
Yeah, totally. So tell us more about how you ethically share fees amongst attorneys within the Overture website. And you have an application process, right? Like not everybody can join.
Yeah. And that's what we learned from Biz Counsel was what makes a good attorney. And it was very, very interesting to see, in that the number one reason why clients love their attorneys came down to one specific thing. And funny enough, as a listener of your podcast, I hear people say it all the time, but I heard Devin just say it last week: responsiveness. It comes down to client service. Are you responsive to them when they need you? Are you responsive to their needs? Do they feel heard? 95% of the issues we had at Biz Counsel were not the independent contractor agreement was deficient in some specific way. It was always just, hey, Ben told me he'd call me at 3 and he called me at 4:30, or hey, Ben said he would send me an email tomorrow and he didn't. And so it was all of those responsive, client-centric specific things that we saw. And so when we built this network, we wanted people to have the confidence that when you refer a client from LA to Boston, that there's something shared between all the attorneys, that we're all cut from the same cloth. And so while every member applies, and of course we do a check on your if you have any disciplinary records, negative client reviews, specializations, specialized experience, anything like that, that's the easy stuff. That's frankly, anybody can do that. But every member has to have an interview with our membership team, because we're looking to see, do you fit the qualifications, those soft qualifications, the responsiveness, the client-centric nature that we're looking for? Are you somebody we would refer our own family to? And if the answer is no, then the answer is no.
That's amazing. How many people are on that committee that reviews those applications? Or is it
about 5 people that go through? And so our biggest challenge now that we've built the platform, and I'm happy to tell you about what the platform does, because there's really 2 sides to Overture. It's the platform that makes those referrals work and helps sharing fees and all that great stuff. And then there's the network side of it that powers it. One without the other is useless. And there's plenty of examples of people trying to do both independently. What makes Overture unique is that combination. But yeah, all of our time now in the last 6 months since we've finalized the platform and see referrals going, people using it, billing going out, is all of our time is collectively spent on vetting members and getting them on the platform.
That's wow. So that's amazing. So how much are these, like when they go on the platform, like what do they see? If they get through the vetting process, what do they see and how do they sign up and what happens next?
Yeah, so it's funny because I think the best proof of what we're building is seeing the platform, right? And so we're actually changing our site right now so that people can see that platform and see a little bit of that activity as to what's going on. I'm an attorney myself. I get hundreds of these emails, these spam emails, and it's very, very hard to tell what's worthwhile and what's not from somebody emailing you. And so the proof's in the pudding in seeing that. And so the platform is what facilitates the referrals between members of Overture, right?
So, okay. No, that's super interesting. So basically you have the platform, but what happened, it's facilitating like the discussions outside the platform.
Yeah, so it's the platform we built to do one thing and one thing only, which is referrals, client referrals between members. So they're all attorney to attorney referrals. There's plenty of platforms out there to try to get clients. This is to help members find homes for matters they can't service from clients that they know and trust. We all know the best clients are from attorney referrals. We're just helping broaden and extend the reach of your practice such that any independent attorney in Overture has the full breadth of the network to turn to when they need it.
And they know that those attorneys have already been vetted. So they could go to somebody in Dallas. If they're in Manhattan, they could be like, I need somebody in Dallas. Okay, well, I trust Overture and Arya that they've been vetted. I can use this attorney in Dallas.
Correct. And that's the comfort. I mean, listen, I'm a user of the platform. My firm is a user of the platform. We weren't going to build something that we weren't using ourselves, and we built it to the standards that we wanted so that people felt comfortable doing that. And, people ask, why can't I just find somebody off the internet? You're welcome to. It's just hard for us as attorneys even to say, is this attorney good? And are you going to call that attorney, get them on the phone, have that conversation? But to know that everyone on the platform has agreed to these core values is powerful. And there's a third party in the middle ensuring not only that they abide by those core values, but we have the platform to ensure that the referrals are done correctly. That's a powerful addition to any independent attorney's toolbox.
I love this. That's amazing. Does that shift any liability to you guys if they end up maybe they didn't write an accurate assessment of themselves on the application?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, listen, I think attorneys always overestimate the likelihood of other attorneys messing up. I think attorneys by nature are very type A. They cross their T's and dot their I's. Granted, everyone's talking about that gentleman who used AI to draft his brief and from beginning to end without checking it. But I think of course, everyone on the platform has malpractice insurance. We have malpractice insurance, and that insures, God forbid, if something like that goes wrong. But I mean, we've had the pleasure of helping thousands of individuals on the plaintiff side. We've serviced thousands of businesses on the biz counsel side. We haven't had one issue. And I think most people go their entire practices without ever having that concern. But that goes to the vetting. That goes to the front end of what we do to ensure quality of our members. It's not just looking at your website. We have video calls, conversations with every single person. And one thing that's really important to us is that we don't charge people a fee to be here. These people aren't here because they pay me $500 a month. They're here because they want to be here. They believe in this. We've invited them in. And if at any point they don't want to be here, it doesn't fit with them, or they don't want to abide by the same core values that everyone else has agreed to, they don't have to be here. That's the beauty of not charging anyone a fee. It's a community of people that believe in what we're trying to build.
So then the transaction, you have the proper way to conduct the transaction, the referral on your site, and then you, as an attorney, might get a percentage of that fee that's transacted.
100%. Yeah, it's we built technology where attorneys post their referrals. It alerts people who match those referrals in the sense that if you do real estate litigation in Georgia, you'd get notified if it's a real estate litigation matter in Georgia. And so those attorneys are free to respond. And so the referring attorney will get the responses from the other attorney saying, hey, Ben, this is something I can assist with. I've done this for 20 years. You can review their profiles, vet them, give them a call, send them an email, do whatever you need to do to ensure that this is a good fit for your client. You can refer that client over. We'll push that client contact information over to that handling attorney to reach out. And we've built e-sign into the platform. So the potential handling attorney can sign the client, and we can add the necessary disclosures that we need to ensure the referral fees are done ethically based on the state that you're in. And then the handling attorney bills the client on our system. We have full invoicing, trust account, everything is there as you would have for your own practice. And so when the client pays us, we can direct deposit the referral fee to the referring attorney's bank account, and then the handling attorney's fee to the handling attorney's bank account, and continue that process as needed for each client and each matter.
Wow, that's amazing. So are you still at a law firm too? Or are you still practicing?
Yeah, so one of the things that we built during this time at Biz Counsel was our own law firm to help service some of the clients that we received from Biz Counsel. But now the law firm is in LA and Dallas, and it's grown and does its own business litigation cases and business transactional work. And but Brian and Kurt are day to day there and making sure everyone's the firm is running well and Biz Counsel is running well. I'm focusing almost entirely on Overture these days.
Wow, that's amazing. That must be really cool. So it is actually almost turning into a community. Like, would you say you know a lot of the members now?
I know every single member.
Okay.
and that's awesome, yeah. And that was done on purpose. You don't want to be able to, especially in the early days, to build something and say, hey, I don't know these people. You want people to say, hey, they've met me, they've met Kurt, they've met Brian, they've met a number of other members. And when you see them interacting with each other, that comes from trust. That comes from the trust of interactions with the membership team, myself, the service team. It's, if you want to say we're building a community, you can't just say that. You have to be in there in the trenches and talking to folks and building that trust with everyone.
That's right. That's pretty amazing. So I know you were like big into like time management, right? Like everything is just so busy. I think I read that. I honestly can't remember where I read that about you, like with like time management, and like I wanted to just get some advice on that if you had any.
That's I'm trying to think of where that came up.
I don't know where that came up. We could completely busy. What's that?
I was going to say we're so busy we can't remember where we said that.
Okay, that's fine. I don't remember either. Let's try this one. Is there a way to synthesize like big Biz Counsel and Overture Law? Do you think like a way to like put those things?
Yeah,
eventually.
I think the truth is Overture came about because of what we saw at Biz Counsel, the clientele, how they became. I mean, you would have small companies that would have, would be growing and they'd be adding employees. And previously they would all be in one state, but now they have employees in 5 different states, like I mentioned. And it's all of a sudden the small company has very complex legal needs. And so if we didn't see that, if we didn't have trouble even servicing those clients with the network that we had built around Biz Counsel, we would have never needed to build Overture. And so there's a lot of interplay in the sense that some of the independent attorneys that service those Biz Counsel clients need help for matters that they can't service, whether it's practice area, geographic, and so they use Overture to find homes for those clients, and vice versa. So, and some people on the platform tend to refer more work out. They have too much work and they get a lot of work that comes their way that's maybe outside of their expertise for one reason or another. And then you have other people who accept more work. And then you have people who do 50-50. You have all different kinds from all different backgrounds. And that's honestly what my favorite part is talking to the attorneys. My team begs me to not be on a lot of these calls, but it's hard when you want to say, hey, I've talked to these folks, I've met these people. It's a different passion that you can share with the next person when you say I've met the previous person.
Yeah, No, I totally understand that. It is kind of cool, like we've had a couple events, and like when I finally meet somebody who I've had on the podcast or like featured like a few years ago, it's kind of a trip, So you kind of build like a rapport. So I definitely feel that. So like, where do you see Overture in the next few years?
Yeah, that's funny. Kurt and I were just talking about that the other day. I don't know when this is going to happen, but I think the proudest day that we're going to run into is when we get to a point where any attorney on the platform is going to be able to refer a matter to any part of the country, some small town with a very specialized legal issue, and they're going to get 2, 3 people to respond and be the perfect fit by lunchtime. We're already seeing that happen, which is wild to me with just 200 members. And so you can imagine as that continues to expand, how powerful that's going to be for independent attorneys. But, I remember one of the proudest days was when I saw a referral get posted Friday at 2 p.m. PST, and by 4 p.m. they had 3-4 responses, and I was referred out. I mean, that ability to have that power at your hands as an independent attorney, and not only that, find a great home for your client before the weekend. I mean, that to me was mind blowing. And so if we can expand that and allow coast to coast coverage for almost every legal issue that you're going to run into as an independent attorney, that's the goal.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's not something that, if somebody sees these come across, say they live in like, Massachusetts, and they see something from Kansas, they're not going to be like, and they keep seeing things for states they aren't like even licensed in. Do people like just unsubscribe? Like, it's not like a listserv or something. I mean, it's not like, it's way more than that. But do people, are some sort of like, all right, well, I'm not really seeing anything coming through yet?
Yeah, that's the funny part is like I used to tell people, hey, you have very specialized experience, or your areas of law are so nuanced, you may not see something for a bit. I was upfront with people.
Yeah.
Stop saying that, because as soon as I say that, like the week after, someone will post something that's perfectly within that specialized experience, and that's the only person, or maybe the only person or two, who can assist. But once we build out everyone's profile and we know exactly what you're looking for, you're not going to get emails for any referrals that don't match that. So we were very purposeful in not building it like the listservs that we've all been a part of, when you're just getting email after email for a legal issue that you have no experience in a state that you're not in. So
we have one of those. Yes. Okay.
I wanted to minimize that, right?
Yeah,
Listen, I'm an attorney too. I wanted it to be that when you get an email from Overture about a new referral, you jump on it because one, it's from another attorney. Two, the quality of that referral is going to be higher than average because it's an attorney vetted client. And 3, it's going to be matching your practice area in your state.
Do you think attorneys are solely using Overture rather than anywhere else for referral needs?
Listen, I know everyone has pre-existing friendships and relationships, and my goal is not to replace that at all. I completely understand that. But when people say, hey, what if they refer outside of the platform? My answer is, by all means. The truth is, it's very, very hard to ensure, one, that you're getting the right client disclosures out to make sure we're ethically sharing your fees. We're automating that and giving you that assurance that, hey, this was signed, the client signed it, we have that engagement agreement and the addendum. And 2, it's administratively challenging to actually generate referral fees in the hourly flat fee world. Like, the reason contingency's been doing this since the 1970s is because there's one referral fee to pay at the end of the case. And if you refer trademark litigation matter to somebody, there's an invoice every single month. So are you going to call that attorney and say, hey, Ben, I think you owe me $1,730? It just would get completely taxing on you and your practice after 2, 3 of those referrals. So the ability for that to happen automatically as invoices are generated and paid, and we're direct depositing your fee to your bank account, ensures that you can just focus on running your practice, and we'll take care of the referral fees when they're paid.
Okay. Wow. It's amazing. I love this thing. Is there anything we've left out that I didn't touch upon with Overture, your practice, your career?
Trying Trying to think. I don't think we've left out too much. I think the funny part about Overture is, one, it's free to join, right? We want great attorneys who believe in what we're trying to build. And I think the funny part is, the most challenging part of this is just getting that message out to the great independent attorneys across the country. Like I said, because we just get so much junk thrown at us and offers to pay for things and buy things, and this isn't one of those. And so it's a funny conundrum that we have, but it's been a pleasure building this for the last year and a half and being live for the last 5-6 months or so. And so we're excited for the next batch of folks that we get to chat with and see where Overture goes next.
So are you geared more towards like a solo practitioner?
Yeah, so we built this with the solo small firm attorney in mind, right? Big firms, as you guys know, once they get a client, they never let that client go, right? No matter what that client needs, what part of the country or even world that client needs some legal assistance, they're going to have somebody who can help, right? They're already doing this. Our goal was trying to give the independent small firm solo attorney that same power. So once they have a client for let's say they're a trademark attorney and they just do trademarks, they can go to that client and say, listen, come to me for anything, whatever you need. If I can't service you, at least let me see if I can find that right home for you, just like that big firm partner's doing when they get that client in the door for the first time.
Awesome. Arya, thanks so much. Like, congrats on your success. We're happy to put it out there to our community. Again, I'll ask you, is there anything else any other advice or anything you want to give out to the Lawyer Stories community?
I think that's it. I'm happy to chat all day about Overture, because I think it's exciting, and I'm personally excited. I'm excited for the people in it and the people that we're going to bring tomorrow. But thank you so much for having me, Ben. It was a pleasure chatting with you after listening to the podcast and hearing all these great stories. It's a pleasure to be here in person.
Yeah, you got it, man. It's awesome to have you on and talk about Overture. Thanks for coming on. Everybody else out there, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.